Well, hello and welcome everybody. I am Kodiak Broncos, and it's time for us to talk about that AFC Championship loss. Okay, it's time for us to talk about that AFC Championship loss. I'm gonna wait until a few more people get in here, but I do just want to say a couple things. First of all, I am recording this as a live show, so if you're watching this on the replay, I very much appreciate you. But either way, I'm gonna do a few things. I'm gonna wait for a few more people to get in here. I'm gonna wait for people to just start hitting the like button, whatever, and then we will actually get into it. So I do apologize if you're watching on the replay and you have to wait a little bit for me to get started, but we'll see when we get started for this. We'll see when we get started because honestly, it sucks, man. It's gonna take a while to digest. And honestly, I don't know when I'll be over it. I don't know when is the time that I can finally put this in the rearview mirror because there's a lot of things that really suck about losing the AFC championship in that fashion. And I think the thing that sucks the most is that it was there for the taking. And like I said, I have this mentioned right here that this is the worst sports loss of any of my teams ever in my life. Yo, what's up, GPG Galapagos? But either way, I appreciate y'all for riding with me pretty much this whole year. And yeah, that's like whatever, you know. And either way, sorry, I am sharing this link with a lot of other people, so I still am waiting for people to get in here. Yo, what's good? What's good? Oh, sorry. And I will be reacting to comments as well. So if any of you have any thoughts, then please let me know. Um, well, yeah, so once again, I am pretty much just going to go over a bunch of things that we learned. Once again, sorry if you're watching on the replay because I am taking a little bit to get into everything, but yeah, yeah. Once again, I'm gonna wait until a few more people are actually in this stream, and then, yep. So it's what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? I'm gonna send it here, and all right, self promo. Okay, yes. So everyone's gonna get mad at me because I'm about to do the everyone tag in our Discord. Yeah, but either way, so I really want this to be an interactive show. So for those of you in the comment section, I'm just gonna go over a few things, and hopefully we can just put this in the rearview mirror. I don't know when I'm gonna be over. I truly don't because this is something that it's gonna take a long time for me to truly grasp the magnitude of how close we were, of truly how close we were at just going to another Super Bowl. And while I think we were probably going to get reamed in the Super Bowl anyway, it doesn't make it hurt any less. So, yeah. Ooh, yes. Yes. Taking some use next. Let's go, boys. But either way, this is easily the worst sports loss of my life. Okay. Now, when I was 11 and 14 during the Manning years, football was not a year round sport for me. Okay. The reason football was not a year round sport for me was quite simply because it was really hard to get hyped about football all the way back in April, May, when I didn't know anything about the draft. I didn't know anything about, training camp, depth charts. When you're a kid, you don't really care about all that. You care about offense, you care about highlights, you care about Madden, and that's pretty much the gist of it. And pretty much all that gears towards the quarterback and the wide receivers. That's really the extent that you care about. But man, it feels like not too long ago. It was 9 months ago, I was breaking down punter film for the Denver Broncos. And I was basically, how do I put this? I was literally entrenching myself into Jeremy Crawshaw film because I was like, ooh. And then I'm looking at long snappers in the draft because I'm just like, all right, is there a guy that we maybe need to target this upcoming offseason? But yeah, Dak, shout out to you, man. If you guys are not subscribed to Dak's new show, go ahead and do that. He's one of the best Broncos follows out there, always one of the most active dudes in the community. So huge shout out to you, Fanatic Dak. You said it best. It was a great season despite the Broncos loss. We were looking forward to a great offseason. Yeah, man. This was one of the most magical seasons I can remember. So, and unfortunately, there's only one team that wins the Super Bowl every year. So, huge shout out to you. But yeah, like I was saying, guys, when you're 11 through 14 during the Peyton Manning years, okay, football is not a year-round sport. All right. the reason it's not a year-round sport is because you don't know anything about the draft, or at least I didn't. You don't know anything about training camp. You don't care about like the bubble players. You don't care about any of that because you're not looking through the lens of an NFL GM. But as it was, I think November, October 2017, when I was like, ooh, the NFL draft, man, I can really put my eyes on some prospects and I can make this a year-round thing. Sign me up. So eventually, the NFL became a year-round sport for me, and ever since then, it's been a long wait for us to get back on top. It's been a long wait for us to get back to this point, specifically the AFC Championship. It was a decade that we were here once again. Now, a decade flies by like that, but still, it was a long time. We had to wait a long time to get back to this where we actually were. So, yeah, that's just the bummer. And the unfortunate reality of this is that, the reason I think one of the reasons this is hitting me hard now is because, when you're a teenager, you're just like, whatever, we'll just get the one seed every year because that was all I was used to back then. But now I'm just like, shit, man, we were a wild card the year before. I lived through an entire decade of suck. I saw the Kendall Hinton game. What else? Drew Lock, Vance Joseph as a head coach, Vic Fangio, Pat Shermer as the offensive coordinator. Just a lot of pivotal moments throughout Broncos country. And ultimately, thankfully we won the Super Bowl because good Lord, I don't even want to know how my mind would be had we not finished the job back then. But yeah, and then you wait this long to get back to where you want to be. And it's just really tough. It's really tough that, it just wasn't your year. The magic just ran out. The only other losses that I can compare to this one are the Avs versus Wild Game 7 in 2014 and the Avs versus Stars Game 7 this past year with the Mika Rantanen hat trick. Those were the two ones that I was just like, oh my God. I was sad after the Avs Wild Game 7 won. I was just pissed, flat out irate after the Avs Stars won this year. But, other than that, this was, just a really tough loss to swallow because, your quarterback didn't even have a chance to finish his story. And, a lot of people don't think Nix is very good on the national circuit. But all I have to say to that is, okay, in a game where two backbreaking mistakes from your backup quarterback were the difference in the game and flat out handed the game to the New England Patriots, you don't think with your quarterback, who one of his biggest strengths is that he doesn't take a lot of negative plays, you don't think that he could have been the difference? Okay. On that fumble that Stidham had, Bo would just dirt it. And, he's very much the moniker of, okay, I want to live to fight another day. He's very much the embodiment of, all right, whatever. If we have to go 3 and out and a abominable clip, but we avoid the truly backbreaking plays, we could just put the game in the hands of our defense, then by all means, we get the chance to do that. But, Stidham, not only did he have the fumble, but he also had the pick, which was really unfortunate. But yeah, ultimately, the reason this hurts is because, this game was there for the taking. I feel like you should have won this game if you're the Denver Broncos, and this is going to be a huge missed opportunity. And, I really hope we make it back for the sake of Bulls, for the sake of Sutton, who lived here through so much suck, because ultimately, those guys are going to go down as Broncos legends, definite Ring of Famers, both of them. And unfortunately, it feels like this was a huge missed opportunity that you missed out on. Even if had you made it to the Super Bowl, I don't think you would have won. But, you know, that's just the reality of the situation. And once again, I do just want to touch on this last point. You can't just say we'll be back after what happened to Detroit and what happened to Cincinnati. The reason you can't just say we'll be back is because look at what happened to those franchises after they got to their high point and then they just never returned to that point. All right. I feel like the moniker for Bengals fans, uh, after the game was just like, well, we're not that sad. Like, yeah, we lost to the Super Bowl, but we'll be back. We'll be back. Right? Wrong. They've only made the playoffs once since then. And yeah, they made the AFC Championship, but good Lord, it's been a mess over there. And then Detroit, man, talk about losing your coordinators, which is something that could happen to us. Talk about losing, a lot of pivotal pieces, your entire offensive line retiring. That was the bummer. That was the biggest disheartening thing about the whole Detroit situation was, it felt like they were going to be the team of destiny to finally lift the curse on the Detroit Lions franchise, and ultimately it just never came to fruition. And they're taking steps backwards. They hired Johnny Morton to be their offensive coordinator, and they also just recently, what am I going to say? What am I trying to say? Not only did they recently hire Johnny Morton to be their offensive coordinator, but they hired Drew Petzing as well to be their offensive coordinator. So, it's just a really tough situation for the Arizona Cardinals because ultimately, or no, for not for the Arizona Cardinals, but for Detroit, because you don't know when you're going to be back. And how does this relate to Denver? Well, everybody says we'll be back. We'll be back. Will you be back though? Like, yeah, I don't doubt that we'll be a formidable team for years to come, but will we make it back to the AFC Championship? Will we have the AFC Championship game in Denver again? We may have to wait another decade for it. Who knows? But it really, really hurts because your quarterback did not have a chance to finish his story. And once again, this may have been our only shot. And that's just one thing I want to hammer home is that you can't just assume we'll be back. It's very hard to get back to where you've been. And think about San Francisco. You can make it back and you could still come up short in your opportunities. So that's the big thing about that. All right. Number 2, live by Sean Payton, die by Sean Payton, okay? I just wanna put one thing clear, we are not where we are today without Sean Payton, but I do put a lot of blame on him for this loss, okay? The reason I put a lot of blame on him for this loss is because the 4th and 1, the execution was just terrible, and I think the play call was equally bad because you've run 2 other 3rd and 1 bootlegs the past month, okay? It's not like the defense was ill prepared for it, all right? The defense was very well prepared for it that you went up against because it didn't work out. And I'm just a bewildered. Okay, you decide to not sneak it while you're under center. That just doesn't make any sense to me. Especially having a backup quarterback, especially when, you know, I don't know, it's just weird, man. It's just really, really weird, man. And it's just weird. Like I said, but oh well. I feel like he's largely at fault for building an offense that could not do anything in this weather because, you have the guys like uh RJ Harvey, you have the guys like Joel McLaughlin. Those guys aren't like good down to down runners. They're really not. All right. And then you think about everything else that has transpired this year. Um, I don't even want to know what this team looks like without J.K. Dobbins the first few months of the year. But yeah, I also felt like they just didn't take the draft seriously enough. I felt like they were just memeing. I felt like they were trolling. I felt like they were just not aggressive at all in the UDFA hall either. And, had J.K. Dobbins signed elsewhere in May when he was available to 31 other teams, you're quite frankly very, very lucky that he did not go elsewhere because honestly, this team without J.K. Dobbins earlier in the year would have had no offense because that's when Bo Nix was still struggling. That's when, there were a lot of operational failures. That's when we were getting penalized at a very high rate. That's when, there was just a whole lot of bad from this Denver Broncos football team. And it's just one of those things that you once again have to live with because, unfortunately, you took a corner with your first round pick. Okay, cool. You get extra there, but why did you not go heavier on the offensive side of the ball? Or I'm not going to say why don't you go heavier because you did take a running back in the 2nd round. You did take a wide receiver in the 3rd round. Granted, very far against the grain consensus wise, but where was the urgency with the UDFAs? All right. There was no way you were running it back with Jaleel, RJ, and Bidet next year, were you? You know, that's just one of those things where I just don't know where you go from there if you're doing whatever. But yeah, once again, I think Sean Payton is largely responsible for building an offense that can't do anything in this weather. I felt like we just weren't whatever, but it's whatever. But yeah, once again, I wish there were more people in here, but I guess not. That's completely okay. I'm gonna try to send it to a couple of my friends so I don't join, or so I don't what's it called? So I don't get super duper bored. But yeah, either way, this is once again live by Sean Payton, die by Sean Payton, and you just gotta live with the consequences. And it just is what it is, man. It's just very, very unfortunate. So yep. I feel like once again, you need an A weapon. All right. I felt like Jalen Waddle, if it is true that Miami only requested a first round pick for him, then that is an all time sell job by this front office for not doing something and being stingy with their capital when you were not in a position to be stingy with your capital, just first and foremost. So, yeah, that's just what I have to say about that. But, you know, oh, well, it just is what it is at this point. I know that Sean Payton is his own biggest critic. I know that he is great at self-scouting. Unfortunately, we don't get a chance to correct the mistakes next week, which sucks. All right, next slide. All right, number 3, the defense finally came to play against a formidable offense. All right, time for some positivity, man. A huge complaint of mine since the bye is that every offense with a heartbeat dog walked this defense, okay? Even the ones that didn't have pulses, like the one against Washington. I'm trying to think who else dog walked this defense. Yes, finally, Stuckerman is here, and I get to cope with you. I'm really happy that this defense finally came to play against a formidable offense because once again, I felt like every offense with a heartbeat completely dog walked this defense. And yes, the defense was starting to bend in the third quarter, but the Broncos offense on the other side was lifeless, and you couldn't play any complimentary football. You couldn't get any drives going, but the first half from the defense was an absolute masterclass. The only points they allowed were on the Jarrett Stidham fumble, and you mitigated potential disaster on the Patriots. They had two-minute drills, and you mitigated disaster on both of them, particularly the one at the end of the half where May ends up getting down and the Patriots take timeout. And also, the pass rush finally stepped it up. A couple of really nice coverage sacks as well. The one by Q Robinson, or no, not Q Robinson, but the one by Cooper in the end zone in particular. I think the defense just covered really, really well. I think there was a couple things where I was like, all right, cool, yeah. Defense absolutely came to play today, and that should have been enough. 10 points is usually going to be good enough to put anybody in the NFL away. But unfortunately, it just was not today, and that's just the reality of the situation. But yeah, it just is what it is. But yeah, once again, I had been very critical of this defense. I'd been very critical of Vance Joseph. I felt like the plans he put together were just not competitive at all. I felt like they were just going weird with their personnel. I didn't like how they, were just doing some certain things. I didn't like how they were keeping Greenlaw off the field. I thought Surtain and Singleton should have been the inside linebacker tandem. What else? Is there anything else Vance Joseph wise? Oh, TW, thank God you're finally in here. Oh, yes. Thank God I get to cope with you as well. Um, but yeah, no, the pass rush really, really stepped it up. A couple of really nice coverage sacks as well, as I was mentioning. You got May on the ground 5 times, so well done. Especially because this defense had really tapered off after the bye. So I want to give him credit for coming to play, especially because the first half when the weather was actually pretty not. I wouldn't say good, but it wasn't like frigid like it was in the how do I put this? It wasn't frigid like it was in the second half, the fourth quarter or whatever. And yeah. So the pass rush finally stepped it up. And yeah, overall, that's a big deal. That was a big deal for me. But let me know what you guys think about the defense. Like, I was pretty proud of the way they played today. You know, Overall, I thought they did a great job trying to do a carry job with the backup quarterback. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. I would have loved to for Hufanga to have come away with that pick, but honestly, with how everything else happened in that game, I can't really point to one particular thing and be like, well, you should have done this differently, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Number 4. All right. Now you see the importance of Bo Nix. Okay. I just don't even want to know what this offense would have looked like without him in the past 2 years. Particularly because, all right, with no run game, with no tight ends and subpar weapons, a lot of this offense has been just Bo Nix just doing Bo Nix things. And, I know it was rough for the first half of this year, but ever since the bye week, the identity of this team has been Bo Nix just carrying them. It really has been. And, this game proved to be what I've been saying this entire time on this channel. They're not as good as this offensive line is not as good as everybody thinks it is. It's not as good. They don't, grade out very well in pure dropback situations. The run blocking also is just not good. I know the line is built to pass protect, but they do benefit from a lot of quick stuff. They do benefit from not having to protect for very long in a lot of cases, and they do benefit from having a quarterback who can bail them out of those dangerous situations when it matters the most. But yeah, on the other side, Drake May's legs were the difference, and Bo Nix's absolutely could have been for us too. Especially because that mobility really showed up for the Patriots in the second half. They were able to get some third and longs, some key third and longs from Drake May, and overall, you had none of that with Jarrett Stidham. All right, not to say that Jarrett Stidham was a statue. Yeah, the O line is overrated. I agree. I think Powers in particular, that spot needs to um, this yeah, the power spot left guard. I've seen enough of him. Also, this defense won't be an elite unit until Singleton and Moss aren't on the team. I don't agree with Moss especially because we've played our best football with Moss on the field the past 2 years. Now. What I will say about that is I get he was a roller coaster ride at DB this year, but I still think we're better with him than without him. He's a dog. Unfortunately, he just has his ups and downs, and this year felt like there was a lot more volatility than there was last season. But last year we proved that we didn't need Alex Singleton to play at a high level on defense. But the thing is, I feel like intangibles go way too far with this coaching staff. I think Singleton, we get it. He's a good locker room guy, but uh, unfortunately, I think that clouds judgment in a lot of situations. I have no idea why Sternad has not been the inside linebacker one down the stretch. I get having Singleton as a locker room guy, but if he's that good as a locker room guy, then just make him a coach or whatever. I think Stidham lost us the game. I don't disagree. But he was just put in such a tough situation where I still feel like we should have won that game, even with him. And woulda, coulda, shoulda. Am I right? I think you can find a better quarterback too in this draft, especially. I mean, yeah, but if we use another first round pick on a corner, I'm gonna absolutely lose my marbles. Um, Now it is a very strong corner class, but if that happens again, I am going to be absolutely. I don't even know how to describe it. I'm gonna be just we couldn't kick for crap. Yeah, we couldn't. And that was a big thing is that Lutz, who he's kind of like Sean Payton, okay? He's kind of like Sean Payton, and we do not make it to this point without Will Lutz this year. But, unfortunately, he just picked a really bad time to have a horrible game that we couldn't, do anything about. So, I have live by Sean, die by Sean as one of my slides. And I have, I should have maybe had live by Lutz, die by Lutz or whatever. But going back to this TW, like I get it, and I get why a lot of the fan base has frustrations with Round Moss. Like I'm not one of those people that's just like, look at his completion percentage. He allows like blah blah. Because I could see that it's a roller coaster on the field. Like all those stats where, you know, everyone's like, Roy Moss is allowed a low completion percentage. Well, if he's getting flagged and the plays that he does allow are just monumental chunk plays, then it doesn't really matter that much. But yeah, I get what you're saying, but I don't know, man. I'm gonna go to my fifth slide, and then we'll talk about more. Overall, there's just a lot to be proud of, Broncos country. Instead of dwelling on our quarterback not being available, everybody got behind Jarrett Stidham. Ever since we heard the news that Bo Nix was not going to play in this AFC Championship game, I I hate I hate Bo Nix getting hurt when he did as well, dude. That's J Money. It's just one of those things where Bo Nix getting hurt when he did, it's just a huge, huge gut punch. And yeah, man, I just don't know really what to say about it because it feels like that's kind of the moment where your magic kind of shifted. And I just hate that it didn't get to end on his terms. Had he just flat out lost this game, then I would have been like, all right, whatever. He just didn't win the game. And it just sucks. It is what it is. But the fact that it didn't get to end on his terms, feel bad for him. I feel really bad for him. I agree with Sean Payton going for it on fourth down. Just wish it was a different play call. I agree. And once again, a lot of you are just now seeing this, but I had noted the fact that we had ran a couple bootlegs on third and ones the past month at Kansas City against the Buffalo Bills. So it's not like the defense was completely caught off guard. It's not like there was some like new concept. It's whatever, but it's whatever. So it's just it just is what it is. What was that shit? What was that backwards pass by Stidham? Yeah, that sucked. He was just a split second late getting the ball out, and by the time he was finally able to get it out, he was getting hit by Giddens. So he was just reckless with the football. That's really all it was. Unfortunately, it was just a play that was read well by the Patriots, and unfortunately, Stidham's internal clock just wasn't that fast where it needed to be. So that's kind of what happened on the backwards pass with Stidham, or that's kind of the way I interpret it, at least. Yep. So, um, yeah, but either way, I'm gonna go to the fifth slide. And I'm gonna turn off comments real quick from the other side. All right. Uh, but overall, there's just yes, I agree. I agree, Jay Buddy, that he should have, literally should have, literally just should have thrown it out of bounds. But It just is what it is. But regardless, so instead of dwelling on the fact that our quarterback wasn't available, the city got behind Jarrett Stidham. All right. And you could tell that Jarrett Stidham, he relinquished this opportunity. And yeah, I don't disagree, but ultimately it was, us who put him in that situation. It was, uh I agree that he needs to be more careful with the football there, but yeah, that was bad. That was bad, especially because I don't know, it just wasn't competitive or whatever. But once again, you know, we got behind Jarrett Stidham, the whole headphone thing, the LeBron meme, like that was great. That was great. And just 3 years ago, I was like, with the Russ contract, when are we going to be back? I was like, all right, with the Russ contract, with the dead cap hit, I was like, 3 years ago, I was one of those people who bought into this being one of the least talented rosters in the NFL. And I thought it was not unfairly ranked as one of the worst rosters in the NFL. And yeah, so another thing that's positive is that your coaching staff is in place for now. The culture is also in place, but now it's time to get behind Bo Nix. It's time for him to get behind, your quarterback. And man, sorry, it's been a long day. I was actually one of those people who was at the game. But yeah, this is still like the fact that we're doing this is crazy. We were good in the first quarter, then we just fell. Yeah, it was free fall mode after the first quarter, and I just wish the offense could sustain a little bit more life in the second quarter because that's whatever. Xander Stucker. I wish we could have seen more of Elijah Moore and less of Lil Jordan Humphrey. I 100% agree with that sentiment. I really, really just don't like what's his name? Um, Lil Jordan Humphrey. I think, why are we lining Nate Atkins out wide? Why are you gonna have guys like Adam Prentice? Why are you gonna have guys like uh Adam Troutman? Why are you gonna have guys like that? All right. Why are you gonna have guys like those dudes, catching balls and it's just mystifying to me. It's just mystifying to me. I'm gonna make a little slide real quick, but keep the discussion going in the comments while I put this together. But yes, the Pats are gonna lose in the Super Bowl. I agree. I think Seattle's just a buzzsaw right now. And the silver lining between this is that you don't have to play against Seattle with a backup quarterback because while we have the defense to go toe to toe with anybody, our offense with a backup quarterback against Mike McDonald, like you guys saw what Mike McDonald did in Bo Nix's first start last year in Seattle. Like that sucked, dude. Uh, yeah. Either way, sorry, I'm typing right now, but keep the discussion going. No room for Prentice, Troutman, Will Jordan Humphrey, Adkins types. If we, who was your wait? Was your cousin like a big deal? Was your cousin's was your cousin like a really good dude? Like, did he start? Like, would I know him? Either way, that's pretty cool. That's pretty freaking cool. Either way, I guess it's in the family. So, uh, shout out to Seattle, and I hope they laid on New England in the Super Bowl. Holy, what the heck? Bobby Wagner's your cousin? Holy cow! What? How'd you become a Broncos fan if your cousin is Bobby Wagner? Yeah, even if we made it to the Super Bowl, we would have gotten a flashback spanking. I 100% agree, and maybe it's just for the best. I think it would have been cool to see our defense going up against Darnold and JSN because I would have liked to have seen how we, uh, responded to the challenge. But yeah, oh well. According to my brother, huh? That's really interesting. That's really interesting, J Money. But either way, keep the discussion going, guys. Like, where do you think we can improve? Where do you think we can improve this upcoming off season? Uh, all right, I'm putting together this slide and I'm gonna pull it up, and it's gonna probably be screen shared for the rest of the video. I probably should have done this before I came on this channel, but yeah. But yeah, I 1000% agree that we definitely would have gotten steamrolled by Seattle. Uh, back with the all right, Sean Payton deserves blame for not having this team. Was What else? What does your team look like? All right, guys, I'm done. All right. First 8 weeks. All right. Where you fell short. Here we go. Here we go. All right. Screen share. Man, Powers was just I'm tempted to say I've seen enough. I really am. I think that was a terrible performance he put forth today. So what are your thoughts on a left guard? Should we replace Powers with a with Palcho or a rookie? To be quite honest, I think throwing a first round rookie into the fire is just not really firing. God, what do we do? That's a good question. If this offensive line, I imagine they're going to run it back because continuity goes a long way with this coaching staff. But we do need to start getting some talent there. We do need a pipeline ready to go because Bulls and McGlinchey are both on the wrong side of 30. So it's just not that good, man. It's unfortunate, but yeah. If we can get someone that gets more push at the line of scrimmage, that would be lovely. That would be absolutely fantastic, wouldn't it? Uh, yeah, no, we gotta start getting younger on the offensive line. Like, there's just no excuse. There's just really no excuse to. Yep, it's the unfortunate reality of the situation is that this offensive line was not as good as they graded out all year, and that's just real. I'm being real with that. That's blunt honesty. That's brutal honesty in this scenario. And you didn't have your quarterback to build them out of some messy pass protection as well. So that's just you know the bad thing. But yeah, um, but yeah. So I do just want to touch on this real quick. So I think you just can't run it back with the Prentice, the Troutmans, the Lil Jordan Humphreys, and the Nate Adkins of the world. Okay. Why do you have those guys on the team if you're not going to run the football? Why do you have those guys on the team if you're just going to completely abandon the run game the first second, you can't run the football? And if we run it back with those guys, we failed. All right. There's just no need for any of those guys on the team, especially if their calling card is blocking. You know, yeah, Bulls and Miners are only elite talent on the offensive line. You're right. McGlinchey, he is what he is, but I think he's had more good games than bad. But you kind of just brought him in because you were the Browns of right tackles, and that's just really all it is. But yeah, Wattenberg didn't have a great game today. Powers didn't have a great game today. But yeah, Bulls and Miners are only like elite talents on the offensive line. The unfortunate thing is Bulls is 33 as well, so you got to start preparing for life after him. But either way, so there's just no room for Adam Prentice, Troutman, Lil Jordan Humphrey, and Atkins types. I hate seeing those guys get lined out wide. Shout out to my boy Stucker. I don't have a problem with McGlinchey either, but once again, I just think he's one of those guys where I don't think he's actually like that good. But the thing is, I think he's still good, but rather I think he's just a little overrated. I just think he brought stability to this. I have a problem with our center and our left guard. Well, the problem with Wattenberg is that you signed him to a 4-year extension, so he's here whether we like it or not. Powers, you can move off of this year pretty easily. And shit, man, maybe Powers is a great line to a great what's it called trade piece or something like that. But yeah, once again. Sean Payton deserves blame for not having this team ready to play in these kinds of games. And if Dobbins was signed by somebody else, what does your offense look like for the first 8 weeks? But yeah, just let me know leave a comment and let me know where we can improve because honestly, it's just time to look forward to how we can improve as a team. All right, it is what it is. We lost the AFC Championship game. It sucks. It blows. It is gut wrenching. It's like I said, one of the worst sports losses I've ever witnessed. I'm actually going to go back to the first slide since it's been a while. We now have 17 viewers in here, and so I just want to touch on a couple things again. You know, I was 11 through 14 during the Peyton Manning years, and football was not a year-round sport. Okay, it's really hard when you're like 12 to get excited about the NFL draft because you don't know anything about college football. You're not like smart. You don't know anything about trades, the cap, contracts. You don't even really know that much about other teams. But um, yeah. Max, wow, holy cow, that is a long name. Future McGlinchey replacement, man. If we I would like to get some young talent in our offensive line pipeline because yeah, that would just be ideal for this team. But yeah, either way, football is not a year-round sport for me like it is now in adulthood. So this was the worst sports loss of my life. I think the only other losses that compare are Avs Wild Game 7 2014 and the Avs Stars Game 7 2025. Avs Wild, I was sad. Avs Stars, I was livid. I was fuming. But once again, once again, you can't just say we'll be back because this may have been our only shot. So that's why it hurts so much. But yeah, so there we go. All right. I'm gonna pull this up. His game against David Bailey made him a fan. I'm gonna have I've watched a lot of guys lately, so I've mainly watched the tight ends, so I'll keep him on my radar for sure. TW4313. Um, but yeah, no, there's a lot of really good players that I like. I really like that white safety out of Texas Tech, as you can tell by the Riley Moss jersey in the background. I guess I kind of have a type when it comes to defensive backs. Um, yeah, no, but I gotta watch him. I gotta watch him because we do need some talent in our pipeline. I don't care if it's a first round pick. I don't know if it's a second round pick. I don't know if it's whatever, but it's yeah, no more white DBs, man. Ah, come on. Come on. Why not? Why not? Like I said, we need some equality. We need running back, wide receiver, bad tight end. Well, we have bad tight ends, so we don't need those. But I get what you're saying. No, I get what you're saying, Johnny M. Uh, it's really tough. It's just really tough. But yeah, leave comments and let me know where we can improve. Because it's just sad. Because once again, I feel like you built your team in a certain way, and all right, cool. It worked until the conference championship. That's just the reality of the situation, and it was no match for Mother Nature. I felt like it fared its test against the Patriots defense with the back quarterback fairly well, but other than that, I think it was just yeah, man. It sucks. It sucks. Um, Either way, I am gonna get out of here because this was just my 5 things we learned video, but yeah, either way, enjoyed talking Broncos with y'all this offseason. I appreciate y'all showing up to the chat. Johnny, TW, uh, Stucker, J Money, unfortunately, it was just a really, really you just ran out of gas, and that's really all it is, but yeah, man, I'm looking forward to this offseason with y'all and, the snow game aesthetics, that was great, and, that may have been the last snow playoff game that we'll play, especially with how mild our winter has been, and, yeah, that may have been our last snow playoff game that we'll play here, at least, but yeah. Alright, Emmanuel McNeil Ward, future Jones replacement. Oh, I have to keep an eye on him, but yeah. Either way, appreciate y'all, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, salute.